20 minutes of education.
What does the partner of each president do? The one who is by their side, their soft power or hidden influence? Is being the wife of a president a gift of a fate or a super stressful limitation? There is a long-standing tradition that the First Lady engages in activism or charity in a certain field. To be honest, this sounds a bit sexist to me. Like, doing something just because this is a tradition or this is made for women, not because it's what you really want or are meant to do. Let's see who among the first ladies managed to reform that and actually have a true impact and real work. We'll break it down and analyze what they are really doing in different countries, who just goes to beauty treatments and who can't be left out of any presidential campaign. And let's start with the first world country, the dream country for many, the one from movies. The United States of America. The tradition of calling the wife or the lady of a public official man First Lady started in the United States. In the early years of the country, there was no established title for the president's wife. Many of the early First Ladies chose what they wanted to be called, including titles like Lady, Mrs. President, or Mrs. Presidentress. Kind of like our modern-day feminized titles. By the way, if you know any other creative feminized versions of the word president, let me know in the comments. Let's move chronologically and start with the wife of the first US president, Martha Washington, who was often called Lady Washington. One of the earliest uses of the title First Lady can be found in a newspaper article from 1838, where the author discusses how Martha Washington didn't change even after her husband became a president. The author wrote, "First Lady of the nation still preserved the habits of early life. Indulging in no indolence, she left the pillow at dawn and after breakfast retired to her chamber for an hour for study of scriptures and devotion." Yeah, this quote definitely feels a bit outdated, and not without reason. It was from the first half of the 19th century, and the term First Lady first appeared around this time. There is also a rumor that the wife of the fourth US president, James Madison, Dolly Madison, was called First Lady during her funeral in 1849. The speech was read by President Zachary Taylor, but no written record of the speech survives, so there is no concrete proof. What happened at Dolly's funeral stayed in there. However, I'm mentioning this rumor because after 1849, the title started being used more widely in Washington's social circles. Yeah, not social media. Mind you, this was still the 19th century, so social circles is what we are talking about here. Probably the Washington elite heard the term at Dolly Madison's funeral and thought, hey, that sounds cool, let's use it. And so they did. One of the first documented written uses of the term First Lady, so it's real proof, was in 1863 in the diary of William Russell, a well-known correspondent, where he mentions First Lady in reference to Mary Lincoln, the wife of Abraham Lincoln. By the way, Abraham Lincoln, the hero of the United States and the liberator of American slaves, is the man on the $5 bill. But I'm guessing none of you really remembers who is on a $5 bill. Only remember hundreds, right? A bit of elitism over there. Nationally, the title First Lady became more common after 1877, when a journalist, Mary Ames, referred to Lucy Hayes, the wife of 19th President Rutherford Hayes, as a First Lady of the nation, in her inauguration report. Frequent reports about Lucy Hayes' activities helped spread the title beyond Washington. Then, in 1911, came a popular comedy play about Dolly Madison, and it was called The First Lady of the Nation. The play's popularity further popularized the term. By 1930s, the title was widely used. Over time, the role of the First Lady started expanding. When Edith Wilson, the wife of the 28th president, took control of her husband's schedule and started running his office after he suffered a debilitating stroke in 1919, she effectively managed his presidency until the end of his term. One Republican senator even called her the president who fulfilled the suffragist dream, changing the title from First Lady to Acting First Man. Fun fact, Edith also revolutionized the role of the First Lady by traveling. Then there was Eleanor Roosevelt, the niece of Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th president, and wife of Franklin Roosevelt, the 32nd president. As First Lady, she did a lot for women's rights. Through her travels, activism, and human rights work, she greatly redefined the role of First Lady, bringing upward of energy and abilities. From 1945 to 1952, she was a U.S. delegate to the United Nations General Assembly and played a key role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. After its adoption, the Assembly gave her a standing ovation. President Harry Truman later called her First Lady of the World in recognition of her human rights achievements. Eleanor was one of the most influential women in the world at the time. She was the First Lady to hold regular press conferences, write daily columns in the newspapers, a monthly column in magazines, host weekly radio shows, and speak at national party conventions. She even publicly disagreed with her husband's policies on several occasions, which I find really impressive, because it really shows that she was a confident woman who knew and stood by her beliefs. She advocated for expanding women's role in the workforce, civil rights for African Americans, Asian Americans, and refugees of World War II. According to her biographer, she became the most controversial First Lady in U.S. history. Despite criticism, she kept up her public life and activism, even before becoming First Lady, at a time when very few married women had careers. But her husband was really supportive of her. In the first year of her husband's presidency, Eleanor wanted to earn as much as her husband, and she did it. She earned $75,000 from her lectures and writing, most of which she donated to charity. In a famous 1933 New Yorker caricature, a surprised miner looking into a dark tunnel says to his colleague, "My God, here comes Mrs. Roosevelt." That's because she often visited regular workers during the Great Depression to make sure they knew that the White House was paying attention to their plight. She was literally doing everything that men in her time did. A true advocate for equality in the first half of the 20th century. After her husband passed away, Eleanor remained active in politics for the next 17 years of her life. She fought for the U.S. to join the United Nations and became its first delegate. She chaired the UN's Human Rights Commission and played a major role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Honestly, I wish Eleanor Roosevelt were still running the UN. Maybe it would have a lot more real influence. By the time of her death, Eleanor was considered one of the most respected women in the world. She even ranked 9th in the Gallup's list of the most admired people of the 20th century. Periodic surveys still show that historians consider her as the greatest First Lady in the US history. Now let's move to France. The very first unofficial First Lady of France was the mistress of King Louis XV, Madame de Pompadour. She was not just the king's mistress, but also his trusted advisor, involved in state affairs and politics. Madame de Pompadour used her position to promote her friends and allies, making her an influential figure at court. Her relationship with the king began in 1745 and lasted until her death in 1764. She played a significant role at the French court, using her charm and intelligence to win the king's favor and influence his decisions. Madame de Pompadour was instrumental in shaping the cultural and artistic life of France. She supported artists, writers, and musicians and played a key role in the development of the Rococo style, which dominated French art and design throughout the 18th century. Overall, her relationship with Louis XV wasn't just romantic, but also a strategic alliance. Another interesting case, Napoleon Bonaparte's first wife, Empress Josephine, who played a significant role in Napoleon's rise to power. Josephine used her charm, social connections, and diplomatic skills to help Napoleon gain support among the French elite and secure his ruling position. She worked as a kind of image maker for Bonaparte, organizing lavish events and ceremonies that boosted his image and prestige, ultimately helping his coronation as emperor in 1804. She was the one who promoted promoted the famous refined image of the imperial court. This helped establish the grandeur associated with Napoleon's regime, increasing his legitimacy. It was like a one-person marketing agency, and based on Napoleon's success, Josephine could have easily run a course on how to inspire your husband to become emperor in 21 days. Josephine couldn't have children with Napoleon, which was crucial for ensuring heirs, so later he married another woman. But Josephine was so important to him that even after marrying again, he continued to refer to Josephine as his real wife until his death. Now, how about the history of first ladies in Asia? Here is a fact about one of the most famous first ladies of India. She married a 13-year-old. But here's the thing, she was only 14 at the time, and later she even went to prison. Let me introduce you to the wife of the famous Indian political figure, Mahatma Gandhi. You know, the guy who advocated for non-violence. Her name was Kasturba Mohandas Gandhi. By the way, Mohandas was her husband's real name, and Mahatma is his nickname. Kasturba was one of the bravest first ladies who actively fought for India's freedom. She participated in civil disobedience movements, including the Salt March. Her commitment to non-violent resistance was as strong as her husband's, and she often mobilized women to join the cause. In 1913, she participated in protests against the mistreatment of Indian immigrants in South Africa, for which she was arrested and sentenced to hard labor. But even in prison, she continued to serve the country. While imprisoned, she led other women in prayer and encouraged educated women to teach the illiterate to read and write. Kasturba often took her husband's place when he was in jail. As you can see, the early 20th century in India was a tough time for those fighting for freedom and justice. Because of her difficult life, her health was in a poor condition, and at one point Kasturba was so close to death that her husband, Mahatma Gandhi, apologized to her and promised that he would never remarry if she passed away. Spoiler alert, she didn't die that time, but the promise was serious and respectful for the time. After that, this incredibly brave First Lady went on to spend more time in prison for the independence of her country. In 1939, Kasturba Gandhi took part in non-violent protests against British rule, for which she was again arrested and kept in solitary confinement for a month. Her health worsened further, but she kept fighting for her country. For your information, India gained independence in 1947. Judging by her actions, this lady had quite the character. Her husband, Mahatma Gandhi, wrote about her. Based on my previous experience, she was very stubborn. Despite all my pressure, she did what she wanted. This led to brief or long periods of estrangement between us. But as my public life expanded, my wife flourished and consciously got lost in my work. As we can see, Kasturba's resilience and strength made her a role model for many women in India. Her legacy is often overshadowed by Gandhi's, but her contribution to the independence movement and social causes has been recognized in recent years. She believed in empowering women and encouraged their participation in social and political activities, often urging them to break free from traditional constraints. Now let's teleport to Ukraine, but still in the distant past. During the time of Kievan Rus, an interesting historical figure from the time of Kievan Rus is not exactly a first lady, but a Ukrainian woman who became Queen of France, the daughter of Yaroslav the Wise, whose name was Anna Yaroslavna. And yes, you might have heard that Yaroslav, her father, wisely married off his daughters to the leaders of different countries to establish strong political alliances. But we shouldn't downplay the achievements of the daughters themselves. Anna received a solid education. Besides being able to read and write, she spoke several languages, including Greek and Latin, as well as Swedish, the language of her mother. So, when King of France, Henry I, heard about the smart and beautiful lady from Kiev, he wanted to marry her. In some historical documents, her signature has been found as Anna Regina, which means Queen Anna in Latin. In the 17th century, a statue of Anna was placed in front of the St. Vincent Chapel, holding a small model of the church she founded. The inscription on the pedestal reads, Anne de Kiev, Reine de France, which means Anna of Kiev, Queen of France. While in France, Anna established her authority through her actions and knowledge. She brought a significant dowry to France, a dowry that introduced the French to the culture of Kievan Rus. Legend has it that the Reims Gospel on which French kings swore their oath was linked to Princess Anna. She also corresponded with the Holy See. There is a famous letter from Pope Nicholas II in 1059 praising her piety and generosity towards the Catholic Church. She is certainly the most famous daughter of Yaroslav the Wise, as she clearly demonstrated the political influence women from Kievan Rus had in international relations. As for modern first ladies, a secondary role often doesn't satisfy the wives of state leaders. They frequently exert significant influence on their presidents and play a vital role in the country's life. Sometimes they actively intervene in state affairs or even step into politics themselves. For example, Hillary Clinton ran for president twice. In Argentina, two first ladies, Isabel Perón and Cristina Fernandez, succeeded their husbands as presidents, and Isabel became the first female president in the world. So, how have the duties of first ladies evolved in the countries we've discussed historically? And we're going to talk about it in the next episode, super soon, just 1 week from now. Write in the comments which first lady mentioned in this episode impressed you the most and why. Or if there is a first lady from a country that wasn't mentioned, tell me about it. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as there are many interesting topics ahead. You can also support my channel here, somewhere, and by the link in the description below. Thank you for watching. See you!